Hey friend, welcome back to Unlock Your Child's Full Potential, where we're all about nurturing enduring connections with our children. I'm your host Billy, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you for a very special episode, one that's close to my heart and filled with gratitude. I have the immense pleasure of sitting down with someone who has been a guiding light on my parenting journey, a mentor I deeply love and respect, Wendy Snyder. Wendy holds a special place in my life, being the woman who introduced me to positive parenting 6 years ago, and incredibly the inspiration behind my youngest daughter's name. Now on the brink of becoming a certified positive parenting coach through her program, I'm truly honored to bring you this insightful discussion. Wendy, a mom of two, is not just a certified parenting educator and family life coach. She's a beacon of inspiration for parents worldwide. As the host of the Fresh Start Family Show and the founder of FreshStartFamilyOnline.com, Wendy empowers parents to learn and grow through connection-based parenting strategies. In today's conversation, we'll dive deep into the essence of positive parenting, exploring how it sets itself apart from the traditional model most of us grew up with. Together with Wendy, we'll unravel the intricacies of this transformative approach that removes fear, force, bribery, and rewards as our main tools in influencing children's behavior. I can hardly contain my excitement for what's to come. We'll touch upon the core principles of positive parenting and its long-term effects. Wendy, who has successfully raised two teenagers with this approach, will share her invaluable insights into the impact it has had on their behavior compared to other kids in their environment. Get ready for an enlightening conversation that transcends parenting norms and sets the stage for a fresh perspective. Let's hear from Wendy. Hey there, everyone. I'm super excited to have Wendy Snyder, a positive parenting educator and a family life coach, on the podcast today. Wendy, you're the one who introduced me to positive parenting 6 years ago. And honestly, you've been a game changer in my parenting journey. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Billy, thank you so much for having me. You are so special to me and mean so much to me. And I'm just really grateful and honored to be here with you today.
I really want to talk about the long-term effect of positive parenting and hear your perspective as a mom of teenagers who grew up with these teachings. But I feel I need to take a quick step back first and talk about the fundamental pillars of positive parenting and how it sets itself apart from the traditional parenting model most of us grew up with. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And remind me now, Billy, how old are your girls?
Right now, they're 10, 8, and 5.
10, 8, and 5. Okay, perfect. So yeah, it really is quite a difference. The model that so many of us are leaning on and really using to raise our human souls, right? It really is quite different than the model that was prevalent decades and decades ago. And really, the biggest difference, I think, is just that when we practice this work, we are really heavily invested and relying on relationship. We always say rules plus relationship equals respect, and rules minus relationship equals rebellion. We do remove the fear, force, intimidation. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect by any means, right? Like even someone who's been teaching this stuff for 10 years, I'm far from perfect, but we do try. We believe deeply in the model that removes fear, force, and bribery and rewards too, as like our main influential tools. And we call those external controls. So the traditional model really relied on external controls where the parent will often come in and overpower, or air quotes, make a child behave. And that could come out through threats or yelling or punishment, right? And the model worked well, obviously, when the parent was bigger, had more power to hold over a child. But then as time went on, you could see that that model became less and less effective, especially once kids hit the teenage years and really started, especially the strong-willed ones, started to revolt against that overpowering way of life. And so, over the last 50, 60, 70 years, there's been some incredible psychologists who have done just beautiful work to help us understand what's actually going on inside of the minds of human beings that causes us all, whether it's our kids or ourselves, because, as humans, as adults, we misbehave sometimes too. What causes us to have great behavior and what causes us to have misbehavior. And so nowadays, those of us who kind of air quotes subscribe to this model, we really are looking to be true influential, like true power influencing of our kids instead of falling into that fear force external control model. The old model is just basically like, my way or the highway. We call it autocratic parenting, where it's like, you do what I say, no matter what. You respect authority, no matter what. And you don't question authority. And if you do question authority, then there will be a price to pay. And then there's like what we do now, which is more democratic parenting, which is like, we use teamwork within the home. We actually share the power with our children. Everyone pitches in, everyone's responsible for contributing to peace in the home. We really come at it from like an empowered angle with our children to help them have intrinsic control, so they keep their hands to themselves in an argument with their sister because they want to, and it feels good to have that self-control versus they're scared they're going to get their iPad taken away.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hear a lot of parents worrying about giving choices to their kids and letting them think that the world revolves around them. And they're concerned about the needs for their kids to understand how the real world works. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's the real world. Well, I believe the real world is actually full of choices. I think the people who fall into the thinking that it's not full of choices, in my opinion, often live in like a very blame-centric life or a victim mindset place where they believe they don't have choices. They believe that they're not actually crafting their life. They believe that everything that happens to them wasn't because of their choices. It was because of somebody else, or they have no power. Like that's often where I find people are really challenging that. And I get it. I was there once too, but now I realize that life is one big choice, right? Like, especially for those of us who live in, countries that have a democratic model, we are filled with choices. And it really makes a difference with how life rolls out, whether it's your career, your marriage, your friendships, your faith walk, the way you raise your children, depending on the choices you make in the world. So with that said, what I found is the children who are actually empowered in the home and given choices, they actually demand it less out in the world. And that's because their power bucket is filled up. And remind me, Billy, is one of your kids strong-willed at all? Or are they all, all kids go through power surge stages of life, but are any of them like strong-willed?
Yeah, I've been blessed with two of those. Like my
Two
oldest
of
one
them.
is the one because of whom I looked for help. Then I
Yeah.
have a really kind-hearted, quiet, and shy second girl. And then, wow, the third one is the most strong-willed of them all.
Is that Wendy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's Wendy.
Oh my God.
I've grown a lot through the process, and I remember posting in your private Facebook group about my early wins and feeling on top of the world. Boy, let's be real, that was just the beginning of the journey, and it's filled with ups and downs. And I've had doubts. Am I doing the right thing? Like,
Me
are these
too.
methods the long-term solutions? How do we navigate these ups and downs for the people out there who are also struggling?
Oh, it's so great that you say that, because it is true. It is like, you're a normal, healthy parent if you have those moments of doubt, right? Like nobody is confident all the time. And I think especially for those of us who were, if possibly we were raised with the autocratic model where if we made a mistake, there was a price to pay. You were going to get in trouble. You were going to get lectured. You were going to get like shame was just something that was common, right? Like you got the message as a kid is like, what's wrong with you? What were you thinking? I won't let you act like that. Like instead of like now we use the language of like, hey, you made a mistake. And of course, you'll be held responsible and I'll teach you the life skill that you're missing. So tomorrow you can make a different choice, but there's nothing wrong with you. You're a normal kid, right? But for those of us who were raised with that, as we grow older, and then you're faced with this big decision of like, now I have a human soul to raise. And you start to follow a way that feels more in line with your heart. But then you have like a lot of resistance in the world because this is not the common parenting model. Like I'm watching my kids now at 13 and 16. I don't know if it's the same for you where you live, Billy, but we are the unicorns in the group. Most of the time, parents are using a traditional punishment model. Most of the time, there's a lot of bribery and rewards. Those are the four that always go together: fear, force, and then bribery and rewards. Most of the time, parents are highly disconnected by the time their kids become teenagers. Most of the time, like kids in our area have iPhones and like access to all these apps on phones from the age of like 8. These are all examples of like how we just live like a very different life. And so it makes sense why you doubt yourself, because the world is telling you, just like so many people told me when Stella was 3, just hit her, just spank her, like make sure she knows who's boss. What are you doing? Right? Like you need more control. You need to get control of this kid. And that came in like many different ways: books and neighbors and bosses and friends, right? So then you start second guessing yourself and you're like, am I drinking some Kool-Aid here? It's a good question to ask, right? To make sure you're doing what feels in line with you. But also there's a fear of making a mistake because again, our nervous system was conditioned to fear a mistake. So it's like, if we make the wrong choice here, there's going to be a big price to pay. And really, actually, everyone's doing their best to raise their human souls, and everyone's going to leave marks on their kids, right? Like as far as emotionally and or physically, but nobody gets out of parenthood without leaving imprints on our kids, right? Like it's just human work. And so none of us are going to be perfect. And this is where I find there's parents that really find success, and then there's parents that really struggle and maybe quit and give up and just go back to the classic model and then have major regret later in life. But it's the parents who are willing to stick with it and realize that they don't have all the answers. They're not going to be perfect, but they fully believe that you don't need to make a child feel worse in order to make them behave better. And that's what a lot of us doubt in those harsh moments, right? Like I can remember this one time with Taryn when my little guy, he made a big mistake. And I sent him to grandma's house for like 3 days. Thank God she lives really close, because I needed a really long time to calm myself down, because I remember asking myself, is this a situation where I should just spank this kid? Like, is that going to be what's going to make this kid this long-term great human being? And thank God I had the support system and the tool to pause, to really like pray and reflect. And I came back and I was like, heck no, it's not what I believe. And we were able to follow through with compassionate discipline. And that was 10 years ago now. And he's never honestly touched another kid in his life. He's my more mellow kid. But to be able to really make the decision is, I don't believe in that model. And then you're going to have the moments of doubt, but then you get a good night's rest. You wake up, you have a fresh cup of coffee, and you're like, everything's fine. It's just last night was really intense, and now we just need to start again. It got really messy. I lost my way a little bit. I started to doubt, but now I'm going to begin again, because this is what I believe in. I believe that connection is the ticket. And when your kids are highly connected to you and they trust you and they truly respect you, not because they're scared of you, but because they really look up to you, it feels like $1 million.
You know what? I struggle still with the respect part, because we have a deep connection with all of them. But my oldest one is trying to test my limits right now. She's trying some behaviors that really trigger me and being disrespectful. For example, my mom is in the room and she's like, you're gonna leave her talk to you like this? And I'm like, okay, am I missing something? Because she will feel bad after that, but she still keeps talking to me in a way that's not appropriate. That's not all the time, but still, there are those situations where I wonder, am I doing the right thing?
Okay, let's break this down for a second, Billy, because this is so good. Okay, so tell me if you can resonate with this at all, but there's handling a misbehavior and teaching a life skill, right? That's what we do as parents. So in that situation, something is happening for your daughter that's causing her, like it's an emotion that she's not fully processing, or it's that she's just doesn't understand how to yet, right? Because in our culture, like emotional literacy is not the norm. Those families like us who are doing it, we are really bucking against the system and teaching this to them. But either she has an emotion that she's trying to, like, whether it's hurt or that you won't let her have an iPhone, or it's, something she's processing, and she's learning to communicate what she wants, ask for what she wants, express her emotions in a healthy way, in a way that respects herself and others, right? And you will continue to teach her how to do that and never give up on her. So there's that task, which is just parenting and how we teach here. And I'm sure you spread on your podcast too. But then you add someone watching you. And all of a sudden, that's where the trigger actually comes from, in my opinion, and with so many of my students. So I'll give you an example. I remember Stella and Terrence, so mine are 3 years apart. They're 13 and 16 now, but we were in a field. We used to go to our farmer's field before he moved, and we used to pick our own vegetables and our own flowers. It was my happy time, and they were probably 5 and 8 at the time. And I would go around and I would create these beautiful bouquets of sunflowers. And my kids have just always been the kids that fight. Like, I got 2 kids that have a lot of sibling conflict. Like, I have neighbors they have 3 girls. They seem to get along so well. My kids have just always been, they just argue, they just bicker. It's gotten a lot better now. But with, I think, a strong-willed child, Stella, and then this easygoing kid, but he won't let anyone step on him, easygoing. It's just been a lot. So that day I'm picking my flowers and they start like bickering. And at the time, I remember they were like playing with stick or something. And I'm over here picking my flowers and I'm just doing my work, right? Like, I'm like processing the emotions. I'm like, we can do this. I can stay calm. I can stay detached, because fighting has always been a big trigger for me. And also I was always scared someone was going to get hurt. But I'm over here, I'm doing my work. I'm like, I can stay detached. And our big thing at Fresh Start Family is we want to teach you how to teach your kids how to fight, because thinking that you're going to have kids that never fight is like, good luck. But teaching them how to fight, how to disagree, how to have, differences of opinions in a way that is respectful, that doesn't cause harm, that is the journey. So I'm picking my flowers and I'm like, I'm going to give them a moment. I'm going to let them work this out. And I'm just trying to, like, I believe in them. They're capable. We've talked about this. And if I need to go over there and do a little peaceful conflict resolution or a win-win, I will. And I'm just picking my flowers. And then all of a sudden I glance over and I see that there's this older couple that must have lived in like a back cabin. And they had come to the edge of the field and they were watching me. And they had their arms crossed and they were watching the kids. And I tell you, I remember it like it was yesterday. I snapped and I was like, I don't remember exactly, but I must have grabbed their arm and I was like, get in the car now. And I got them in the car and I was like, I'm so sick and tired of you guys always fighting. And I lectured them and I yelled at them. And then I had to take Stella to drum lessons. She's a drummer. And I basically like kicked her out of the car. I was so enraged. And I just look back at that story and thank God this work gives us the tools to make amends with our kids, to take responsibility, to leave a new imprint on their brain, because holy smokes, did that leave a big imprint on their brain. And it was a big mistake that day, the way I handled it. But as we do in this work, we used it as data, we used it as learning. And I just know that it was actually the judgment or the fear of judgment that was the trigger. It wasn't actually me doubting myself that I was doing a great job mentoring these kids. It was then the fear of judgment or the fear of criticism that then threw me into this like, oh no, I'm gonna like need to respond like this. So I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but often it does. So when our moms or dads are watching, that's a classic time that causes us to doubt ourselves. Where if she wasn't watching, I bet you you would have been a little bit more likely just to be like, hey, what's going on here? Like, I can see you're upset and I'd like you to try that again. Like, we can have a conversation where we respect you. You would have just been like a little bit more, possibly calmer, shoulders relaxed, and confident, knowing that you have the ability to redirect a 10-year-old who is speaking in a way that you would like her to change the next time she's upset with you.
Yeah, that's true. Friend, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that follow button on iTunes or Spotify. Subscribing means you won't miss a beat when I drop a new episode each week. And if you can spare an extra minute, please take a pause, either right now or as soon as this episode wraps up, and give me a review if you wouldn't mind. It's the ultimate way to show some love for the free content I bring to you every week. Your reviews make a world of difference. They help boost the show's visibility in the iTunes world, and more reviews mean more moms can tap into this mix of education, inspiration, and practical tools. Thank you so much in advance for leaving a review, for subscribing to the show, and just thank you for being here. Thank you for being a loyal listener. I'm over here cheering you always. And I also find a lot of us may handle the moment, like keep their calm and handle the situation, but forget the calm teaching afterward. Like we found ourselves stuck in the same patterns because we don't take the time to address the situation. Any tips on ensuring how to not miss these valuable teaching moments in the midst of our hectic schedules? Because it just gets forgotten.
You're right. I do see that this is a hang up that holds people back from fully being successful with this work. And even me, right? Like who is 100% fluent, been doing this for 13 years. Right now, I have something on my list to do. I think it was, yeah. I kind of snapped at Stella a little bit the other night at the dinner table when she was like kind of had a tone with her brother. And I realized later that I was actually just really triggered in that moment because it reminded me of like, I was the little sister. I had an older brother that was 5 years older, and he always kind of, air quotes, mean to me. And I realized afterwards that I had overreacted and spoken to her in a way that was like a little aggressive. So even I still need to go back and teach and redo. Redos are a little bit different than teaching or logical consequences, but it's all the same idea. And it's really never too late. So I think I'm like 7 days out now, but tonight this has inspired me to make sure I have that conversation with her before bed and just say, hey, remember last week when I like snapped at you a little bit at the table? This is what I realized. And so, I just wanted to say, I want to do that different next time. And I want to be able to just take a deep breath and know what's going on for me instead of like talk to you like that. So just know that it's never too late. You can do it a half hour, you can do it at bedtime, you can do it next weekend, or you can do it 2 months from now, but you really want to make sure you do it. I remember, Billy, tell me if I'm wrong, but I want to say when you shared with me that beautiful note of just how much this work had changed your life and created this relationship with your daughters, I remember you saying something like, I carry around this little notebook or something in my bag. And I look at it and I want to say you said like, whether we're at the train or the bus stop or like, I don't know, but I just reference it.
I had one of those. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, I lost it and I never took the time to write another one. I have it on my computer right now, but it's not the same.
You can jot it in your notes app or actually put in a calendar reminder that at bedtime tonight, you get a reminder, like a little alarm goes off on your iPhone that says like, hey, just don't forget to teach that life lesson about how to express yourself when you feel hurt, right? Like say you have a kid that has revenge misbehavior today and he throws a Lego at you or, whatever it may be, hits his brother. Like tonight, we want to make sure anytime there's revenge behavior, revenge is a good one to give an example of because it's like pertinent that we teach a child the root of revenge, which is the feeling of hurt. And kids are like basically culturally conditioned and for many other reasons, like they have this mistaken belief that when I feel hurt, I must hurt back, often because that's what's been modeled to me. And so we really want to come beside these kids later and this is what we do instead of punishment. We do logical consequences, which includes many different types of teaching, but one of them can just be simply to educate a kid of like, hey, earlier when you hit your brother, I think what was happening for you, I don't think you think he's stupid. I know you called him stupid and then you hit him, but I know that you don't think he's stupid. I know that you guys actually have like, you love each other so much. I think you were just really mad and hurt that he wouldn't let you play with that video game or the Legos. And so that's the feeling of hurt. And that's not a weak one. That's not a feeling for good. Like boys feel hurt, girls feel hurt. And when you feel that, this is how you can move through that in a way that respects yourself and others. And then you teach, right? And then you give personal examples of when you felt hurt or how you used to smack back or say unkind things back to people when they said something hurtful. Sometimes it does look like creating a chart or doing a full redo, which is an example of a logical consequence that we do where you just like redo the situation that happened. So in the situation of siblings fighting, it would be like, hey, before we go to bed tonight, I just want us to practice like redoing this in a way that's going to make you both feel really good about yourselves and keep everyone safe. So little person, you're going to pretend like you're not going to let him play with your Legos, which we will talk about later. And then big brother, you're going to pretend like I want you to actually act out taking a deep breath and walking away or pulling your shirt and saying, I feel so mad or something. But that's an example of a redo, right? And it doesn't have to be this like lengthy thing. The biggest task there is just to remember to do it and to learn how to do it. And then just to not let yourself brush it under a rug. So many families have painful generational cycles of brushing things under a rug. And it really can do damage. We don't want to brush things under a rug. When you do that, resentment, bitterness, disconnection, all those build when you don't come back and revisit something and like get to the root of the problem and learn while like connected with your kid.
I love that so much. Yeah, I remember as a kid, nobody apologized to me. There was an issue and we just waited till everyone forgets about it and just move on. So this is something I try not to do with my kids.
Isn't that interesting how that was the norm, Billy, but that also still is the norm. I see it like with my daughter's best friend who's 16. I mean, it is intense how big the fights they have and then like her and her parents, and then they will never talk about it ever again. Nowadays still. And it was exactly how I was raised. And so, yeah, I'm with you.
You mentioned logical consequences, and this is what we do instead of punishment. But I know even the positive reinforcement is not the best approach. Would you clarify for people why? Why not? Why not praise our kids for a job well done?
Praise versus encouragement. This is an area when I first learned about this, I remember being like, that is so dumb. Like, what is the big deal of saying good job to my kid? And it's not like saying good job is bad. And just that when you realize like how praise is often rooted in judgment, and then encouragement is more rooted in like inspiration and acknowledgement. So the big difference, like, you know, we teach our students how to do it differently is saying like, good job. I'm so proud of you. It's like, wow, you did it. You kept your hands to yourself. How did that feel? You made it through the entire church service and the church nursery, even though you were really upset and you didn't want me to leave. Thank you. I was able to have like a really nice church service and you did it. You are capable of doing big things even when you're scared. And I see you and I know that was a lot for you and you did it. And I'm so inspired by you. Like it just comes across so much different than good job. I'm so proud of you. I approve. And again, it seems so innocent, but it's with strong-willed kids, especially, I believe it wears on their souls. And they just have this like huge desire to feel powerful. Like when my kids were little, Taryn is my more easygoing one. So let's just take Stella. And Taryn too, but they just wanted to know the answers, right? Like you would start to do something for them and they'd like kind of push you out of the way and be like, no, I do it. One of them would say, me do it. The other one would say, I do it. And they just, you could tell their little bodies, especially Stella, she was thriving when she was steering the ship, when she was tying her shoe, when she was like building the sandcastle. And so it's kind of the same with praise versus encouragement when you're teaching life skills, when you help your child realize that they're the one who did that. And they're the ones who should be really talking to themselves and saying, way to go, because kids battle the internal critic really young. And just like us adults do, and no one taught us when we were young how to battle that internal critic, that's like going to be like, you're not good enough. You didn't do it good enough. You did it wrong. But instead, if we teach them from a very young age how they can actually encourage themselves and realize how capable they are, even when they feel challenged of doing things, that's the power of encouragement versus praise. There really is no right versus wrong here. So when you use praise, it's not right, it's not wrong. It's just praise. That's just what it is, right? Whereas using encouragement is just a different way to acknowledge what they've done. So just that in itself, if you start using that different language with yourself of, I just want to like challenge myself to switch it up into, wow, you did it. I'm so inspired by you. I actually completely replaced, even with myself and my team, and the whole team is like this now. We don't ever say proud. We say inspired by. And it took us a few years, but we say, I am so inspired by us. I am so inspired by you. I am so inspired by myself. Because inspiration is something that like affects people. When I'm inspired by myself, I want to do it more. Proud is like, I'm off the hook. Like I did it good, So, but just taking away that pressure as a parent, like I got to get this right. No, it's not wrong to say you did great. You didn't hit her. And you can challenge yourself in a fun way to like switch it up and just see what happens, see how they respond. If you're like, you did it, way to go. I saw it. I saw you keep your hands to yourself. And I know that was so hard. I'm so inspired by you. Like you did it.
I love the reframe. I love it. Inspired. That's a great word. I'll try that. Now let's talk about the long-term effects. What are some of the benefits you've observed? When I envision success as a parent, it's about enjoying time with my kids, being calm and confident that they're going to be okay out there in the world. And I would like to be their go-to person when they need guidance. Is this what you're seeing with your own teenagers? Is this the way to achieve these goals?
It really is. Oh my gosh. It is such a fun stage of life right now to be there and have 13 and 16-year-old. Again, we started this work when Stella was 3. So we are 13 years in now. Because I've built my career out of this, we are a very like dedicated, became fluent probably within like 5 years. So we've been fluently practicing this for 8 years or something. But my gosh, it's so fun to see it actually playing out in real life, because so much of this journey was an experiment, right? Like you can read all the books, get all the certifications, but until you see it for your own eyes, again, you have a little bit of the doubt, right? Like I remember in kindergarten when Stella, a few of the parents were complaining that she was a bully. And that's when I started volunteering in the classroom so I could like really see what was going on. And I started teaching some of the work that we teach at Fresh Start Family, but she was called a bully. And then also we started to like kind of do things a little different than the public school system after we watched the Race to Nowhere documentary. And I remember just being so scared, like, what if it doesn't work? Like what if we say that we're not going to force our kid to do homework, and then she like starts failing out of school, or she becomes a bad student? What if we don't reward our kids for good grades or stress about good grades and then they become bad grades, right? Or what if Stella really does grow up to be this very mean kid that's like the mean girl, right? Like, so there's all these worries. And then now here we are where we just see it. Like it is such a difference. Stella, I'll just take her, for example, the 16-year-old. She has so many wonderful friends and I love them so much. Our home, thank God we live in a very small house in Southern California, but it has become like kind of the safe place for all of her friends. So I get to see her friends often. They love to hang out here. She'll have like 10 teenagers pile into her room. And I'm like, you guys can have the living room. We'll go into the bedroom. She's like, no, we like it in here. They're just, kids don't need space. They just need safety. And I get to know really well what's happening for those kids and what's happening in their homes and with their parents. And it's just so different than what we have here. So yes, you mentioned you want your kids to come to you and feel safe as like you being their mentor and their guide. That is absolutely what's happened. That's from using compassionate discipline and taking away the like you're in trouble piece and just moving into problem solving and teaching with our kids with a huge emphasis on modeling. That's how we got there. The like determination and the decision that we were going to make safety in our home the priority. That is what has fueled, I think, the relationship. And our kids really do feel safe if they were to make a mistake. And Stella is normal. She's a normal human. And she's like, had a few mistakes over the years that we did need to do compassionate discipline, but it was connecting. It also was opportunities that led Terry and I to reset some of the habits we had. Some of them were big lifestyle habits that we decided to like really reset to make sure that we were modeling for our daughter what we expected out of her. She tells us everything, and that feels so good. There's a saying that says, I forget who said it, but it was like floating around the internet at one point. It said, I want my kids to say, instead of saying, oh crap, my mom's going to kill me, they say, oh crap, I need to call my mom.
Oh.
And that's really what we're seeing. I know. It's really what we're seeing play out. Whereas I can tell her friends, 95% of them don't have that safety. They are going into the hiding, the rebellious behavior, the lying, right? Like, and they're in the punishment model homes. So it's like, I can just see how it's not working over and over again. And then just the life skills. It's crazy, Billy. I'll take grades, for example. I guess they must have gotten blessed with great healthy brains that excel in a classic school system, right? Like kids that don't necessarily excel in a classic school system are also brilliant when they're supported by supportive parents. They can take other routes that are fantastic. So it's not like good grades defines anything. And we have taken a hands-off approach and raised them both with an empowered mindset. And we really we're not using external controls and we're not forcing anything. And they consistently are straight A students with some AP classes, right? So things like that, or the life skill of just knowing to be different and stand on your own 2 feet. That's been a huge thing to watch play out because I just feel so much for the kids who are raised in the instant obedience homes or the submit to authority. It's heartbreaking to watch that turn into a struggle to really not cave to peer pressure or not just do what your friends are doing as teenagers. In our town, it feels like we're like the e-bike capital of the world. Maybe. I don't know. I imagine Amsterdam is like really e-biking now too. But here in Southern California, these kids from a very young age have these incredible e-bikes and they can get around town. But it's wild how many won't wear their helmets or buckle their helmets. And we have kids lose their lives at least once a year. We'll lose like a 14 or 15-year-old on the road. We actually lose a lot more than that. But it's heartbreaking to watch the rebellion come out in like a situation like that. Once you get to become a teenager, the peer pressure to do things is so intense. And it's like, I just watch like the young guys, especially, and 90% of them are rolling around without buckled helmets. And I've watched my kids navigate that and like also have street safety that was, again, like not what their friends were doing. That also was a result of compassionate discipline and lots of teaching over the years. So that's just some examples for you.
I love that
so
they
fun.
don't succumb to peer pressure. That's a big one. I'm inspired by this. So this is a way to prepare for the teen years that so many parents are anxious about, right? This kind of parenting will get the connection to a place where you can be calm, that it's going to be okay.
I love that because that's what it feels like right now. goes to an event, like she has winter formal next Saturday, I don't worry. I don't feel like I have to check her phone or, like sneak around and make sure or like expect that she's going to hide something from me or lie to me. Like, I just feel very at peace and I trust her. I trust Taryn out in the world, my little guy, if they're going to be going in a car or if they do make a mistake, I trust that they'll tell me. They won't hide it from me. It is a very peaceful feeling once you realize that the work has paid off. There are so many stories in the in-between, Billy, of like how beautiful it was to see the results 5 years in, right? And 10 years in. And this is just what it looks like 13 years in. But it really does work. And if you want kids that have like very strong intrinsic control muscles, like the ability to do what's right when no one's looking, then the style of parenting is the ticket.
Yeah, that's the best. Thank you, Wendy. Would you tell us about your show, your community, and all the fantastic ways you support parents on their journey?
Yeah, the Fresh Start Family Show. Yes, that's our podcast. We've been around for a few years now. I think we have a few hundred episodes now. And my husband co-hosts with me. His name is Terry. He is also in a lot of the role play videos in our signature positive parenting program called the Foundations course, which is really fun because we get to like show you what it looks like to like actually follow through on the tools that we teach. So that's our show, the Fresh Start Family Show. Find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts. And then, yeah, we have a global education platform and support program now called the Fresh Start Experience, which you were one of almost my founding members back in the day when it was called the Bonfire. I think you were with us for a few years before you, what we call graduated. And now it's turned into just such a wonderful full support program. We have teams of coaches in there that are just amazing, certified in our Fresh Start Family approach. And we have like a Netflix library, we call it, of positive parenting lessons that's almost 100 deep now. It's just so extensive. And yeah, that program is very near and dear to our heart. It's called the Fresh Start Experience. And then just so much free content. If your listeners want to come find me on Instagram, I'm at Fresh Start Wendy. That's where I like to hang out the most. It's there in the podcast where we love to give just as much free education as we can. And then if anyone really relates when I talk about strong-willed kids, we do have a free quick start learning bundle that if you come find me on Instagram at Fresh Start Wendy, you can just DM me the word freedom and I can send you that quick start learning bundle. Or I'm sure you can put the link in the show notes or something, but it's freshstartfamilyonline.com/power to get access to that free quick start learning bundle.
I'll put that in the show notes so parents can get some immediate positive parenting wins. I think this work is powerful. And I heard you calling positive parenting the powerful parenting. And I think that's so good. That's the way it should be called, because it's not just positive, right? You're still setting limits and following through. So powerful parenting is a good word for it.
I agree, Billy. I stumbled upon that language like 6 months ago, and I'm starting to use it more and more because I just get so excited about anyone who leads in this world with true power, right? Because there's just so much of the false power, which is force and overpowering. And that's just, I just have never been one to respond to that. And neither have my kids, but I do respond to true power when I really look up to someone and I really respect the way that they are living their lives and helping others. And like, that's when you will have all my heart if I truly respect you. So yes, powerful parenting. I'm with you. I'm using that term more and more these days.
I love it. Thank you, Wendy. This was a dream come true. Thank you so much for listening and letting me be a part of your day. Your time and attention mean the world to me. Stay connected for more insightful conversations, and until next time, keep nurturing those meaningful connections with your children. Take care.